will take this opportunity to call us to order. So here's my fun bell. Let's see if it works as well this week. All right, I think we have a good winner. Well, good afternoon and welcome to this January 29th, 2021 meeting of the Rotary Club of Brentwood. I am Keely Hall and I'm your club president. Steve Grissom has our invocation this morning, followed by Dick Bowers with the pledge and four-way test. And before we get too far into the meeting today, I do want to acknowledge before Steve's prayer that our condolences go out to Lena Sugis today, who lost his mom yesterday. We're sorry about that, Linus, and our thoughts and prayers are with you.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Will you pray with me? God, we're so thankful for this day. Father, we're thankful for Rotary, for all its members, those that are here with us and those that wish they could and those that have gone on before us. We are so blessed to be in such a great community of Williamson County, and help us to not only not take that for granted, but for us and being a member of Rotary and service above self, that we will realize that our all the things that we've been given, that we will be glad to use those to serve others that are not as fortunate as us. Father, we're mindful for the members that we've lost over the last year, mindful for those that are sick. Father, we ask a special prayer for Linus and the loss of his mother. She had a good life, but it's always hard when you lose someone so close, especially a mom. Just want to be with him and just cover him with your blessings. Father, I want to pray for our nation, for our country, and for its leaders. Father, it's such a divisive time in our nation, and it's one that we need to get past. Father, you know my mom is one that's always said that labels are for pickle jars, and never really understood that until now. It kind of means a lot, that when, no matter what our affiliation politically is, no matter what our race and ethnic background is, you know, we're all Americans, we're all children of God, and that is it. And help us not to be so divisive, but help us to be unified in our thoughts and our prayers, that this nation grows stronger and more cohesive. Father, thank you again for Rotary. Bless each one of us that are here today. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Mr. Bowers.
Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Four-way test.
And now for the four-way test of the things that we think, say, and do. First,
Is it
It's
true?
true.
second,
Is it fair to all concerned?
third,
Will it
build goodwill and better friendships?
and fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you.
Thank you to the tag team of Steve, Dick, and Tom. Appreciate all that. Jane Covington, our club secretary, will look through our windows here and introduce some of our guests. We have a few. One, we were about to induct as a new member, so we'll hold Jake off until a little bit later. But Jane, if you'll introduce the other guests.
Absolutely. Well, I see that we have Zach and Brett, and this is difficult when we're not in person, because normally we greet you when you come in the door and we find out, you know, whose guest you are and you're introduced to the club. So I'll ask if you guys, maybe in that order, Zach, then Brett, would you just introduce yourself real quickly, please?
Yes, thank you, ma'am. My name is Zach Venner, and I was a guest of Jack, who I just emailed the other day and invited me to the meeting. So
Awesome.
excited. First Rotary meeting ever, and excited to be here and among you great people. So thank you for
Yay.
having me.
We're very happy to have you.
Yeah, I'm Brett Robb, and I'm a member of the Franklin Breakfast Rotary, and I'm just attending as a guest today.
Oh, well, welcome. Always nice to have
Thank you.
another Rotarian join us. And then there are some phone numbers that I don't recognize, so I'm going to have to ask that if you are a guest and joining by phone, that you just speak up and introduce yourself. Could be that those phone numbers are members.
That's what we'll assume for now.
Let's do it.
Welcome to our guests. Zach, what brings you to your first Rotary meeting ever, if I may be so bold to ask?
Yeah, great question. I love the invocation this morning, and I would say a lot of that is my motivation. I want to give back to the community. I love the area, not being a native of the area, but I love that, and just getting more involved, especially within the last year. But I have I'm blessed with some rather a lot of time, so I want to get involved with the community, meet great people, and as you get to know me, you'll know that I'm pretty gregarious and I love connections. So I would say all that, if I can help out people, have fun with great people in the process, then I'm in. So
Great.
Hey, Jane, could we ask Zach to put his email or contact information in the chat so that we can stay in touch?
Perfect. We will hunt you down, Zach, and recruit you.
I was going to say, we probably need Zach to record a promo video for our club.
And Zach, there's an opportunity Saturday. We'll talk about it later to clean up the Little Harpeth. So
that's right. That's right.
Okay.
Plug in for that.
Awesome. Yeah, I can put my information in the chat.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Sana, for that reminder.
All right. Next up is Happy Bucks. That's a little time for our guests. Just info for our guests. It's a time for anyone, guest or member, to share what they're happy about this week. Typically, we ask you to put $1 in a donation jar so that we can fund our fun little charities. But today it's going to be a virtual dollar. You can pay us by PayPal or online if you'd like. But Happy Bucks, anybody want to share something you're happy about today? Man, I must have laid a little too heavy on the donation piece of things.
If no one's going to go, then I'll go.
Okay.
I mean, there's so much. I'm like so excited to number one be here, but just had a phenomenal week. I started off this morning with I'm taking Krav Maga classes for the first time, like I started about a couple months ago. So it's a great way to get a good workout in and learn some self-defense. But I could go on for all the things I'm happy about, but that's
I love it.
Yeah. Keely, I'll go. I am happy to be done with the coronavirus, at least for, they tell me, 3 to 5 months. So I'm glad to have my family through it. It wasn't fun. I think we got lucky. So I'm happy to be at work and alive.
Hey, Devin, they say the family that quarantines together stays together, right? So you did good.
Right.
Hey, Keely, I've got one. I just want to thank Patrick Wright for his excellent work on the Little Harpeth. We have approximately 75 scouts from girls, female scouts, male scouts, and Cub Scouts. So we're very excited about tomorrow. We still need leaders and help. So, but I just wanted to say, Patrick, if you're here, I'm sorry, I see that you're here. You may want to add something.
I'll do one. I'm happy for our speaker, my buddy, Matt Largen. Those of you that know Matt know what a dynamic guy he's been, not only with the Williamson Chamber, but
this community, not just Brentwood, Williamson County, and probably doesn't get as much credit as he should. He's got a great staff of people, and he's a great speaker. I'm really glad we have him today.
Agreed.
I need to say
Got
something.
a couple, Keely.
All right.
Hey, Keely. So I'm happy. Metro Schools sent out an email this morning saying that the numbers have went down, and the number that they look at to go back to school in person was down. So they are in discussions to phase in-person school again. So I have a 3rd grader and a 6th grader. So my wife will probably be more happy than me, but. And then the second one, finally getting some clarification on my UT Vols. So some new leadership and coach up there.
That's right. Is there any truth to the rumor that they're just going to hire the entire faculty and staff from UCF?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much done. Yeah.
Well, that and every football player is going to now be playing at Oklahoma next year.
Yep. The Oklahoma Vols.
That's right. That's where our coach played.
All right. Well, let's move on from Happy Bucks. We've already kind of had a preview on this announcement, but the first announcement I had on my sheet today was to remind everyone about the Little Harpeth River cleanup tomorrow at 8:30. Patrick, do you have anything to add to our reminder there?
No, I would just say to kind of echo what Son, I'm literally doing Little Harpeth, have been doing Little Harpeth business all day, responding to emails and getting forms out, trying to get some participation forms, registration forms out ahead of time so that we can live into the social distancing aspect of what we're trying to do tomorrow at the library. I just got an email from one of the Cub Scout pack number 6. They're over 50 now. Adults and kids coming from that one pack. So the scouts are definitely going to be presenting tomorrow in large numbers. I could still use a few folks there tomorrow just to kind of help herd the cats, as I say, when folks start arriving, and being sure we get participation forms signed, get everybody registered, get supplies out. The back of my Pilot is full of garbage bags and vests and grippers, and we'll want to get that out to the participants, and then just kind of the general coordination of getting folks out to the different sections. But I've been very, very encouraged with the feedback. I think there's a general sense of folks wanting to get out, get away from their electronics, get the kids out and doing something in nature. Hoping that the weather forecast holds up, which it looks like it's going to give us a good day to get this in before we get wet tomorrow night. So anyway, thank you all very much for your support and your help.
I am
Hey, Patrick, this is Jennifer Shepard.
Yep.
How early would you want us to arrive at the library to help you out?
4 o'clock is early. I'll be there about 3:15, but 4 will be fine. Jennifer, if you'll bring some biscuits, that'd be awesome. So
Are we duck hunting?
Yeah, I'm gonna be there to get tables set up. I'll probably get there about 7:15, just to get tables set up outside, just kind of figure out how to coordinate stuff. And if you could arrive somewhere around 8 to 8:30, that's when we will start seeing most of the registration folks coming in to sign up. And then that's when I start having to, kind of figure out putting the right bodies on the right sections based on age and, size and all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, anytime in that time frame, 8 o'clock. And then once they're gone, they're gone. It's kind of like a flight on Thanksgiving morning. The gate's full and then all of a sudden you're listening to the clock tick. So we'll get everybody out to their sections. I also out that Mr. Cal Turner, whose farm we have cleaned now this will be 16 years. I talked to his farm manager. Mr. Cal may actually be out this weekend to say hello to our volunteers in Section 5. So I think that's pretty cool. So anyway.
Nice. I'm going to go ahead and enter in the chat box here Patrick's email address. If there's anybody that would like further information on tomorrow's river cleanup, you can email Patrick. There we go. All right. Now I don't think that I've ever said this before, but I have an announcement about super butts. The Franklin Noon Rotary Club is doing a fundraiser that they're calling Super Butt, and it has to do with the Super Bowl. And they are they're smoking pork butts and beef tri-tips. And if you would like to order one, each one is $40, but for every order they receive, they're going to donate another order to a family in need. So it's a good way to serve the community and also fill your belly. If you would like to order one of those, you would email bill.foley@franklinbbqsociety.com. bill.foley, Foley, at franklinbbqsociety.com. All right. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to Larry Kane as he introduces our newest member of the Rotary Club of Brentwood. Larry Kane, take it away.
Thank you, sir. I might remind everybody that the Franklin Noon Club other project is the rodeo, so I'm not sure of the source of their meat, but just saying. Okay, I get to, and I'm very proud to introduce Jake Inglacia today. He's another member of the Banking Brotherhood, and we're glad to have him in the club. I met Jake last year at his office down on McEwen when I called on him about a golf sponsorship, and we ended up talking about the Rotary Club, and he was very interested at that time, and it kind of led to where we are today. Jake is the Solutions Synergy Manager for PNC Bank. PNC Bank is relatively new in our market. He's in the office located on McEwen. For those of you who don't know where that is, he's right across the parking lot from the Bricktops restaurant. So I'm sure you know where Bricktops is, and he's in that center right across from that. PNC, new to our market, stands for Provident National Corporation. They're headquartered in Pittsburgh. It's one of the largest and oldest banks in our country. In fact, it was the first bank to be nationally chartered in the United States in 1863. So it's a proud, old, very successful bank. Jay came to Nashville from Cleveland, Ohio, and admits to being a huge Browns fan. Sorry about this year. And he worked for SunTrust Bank when he first came to Nashville before he went with PNC. Jake and his fiance, Tessa, they love to travel. And when they're home, they have 2 cats and 3 horses that they take care of. So, horse guys usually have great boots. So I'm interested in seeing Jake's boots when we finally have meetings. Here's a very interesting fact about Jake that we can probably take advantage of in our club. He's actively involved in Middle Tennessee theater groups and actually teaches acting to kids and also gives singing lessons. So I think we might have some candidates in our club. So I'm tickled to finally get Jake in, and everybody give a good Rotary welcome to Jake Inglacia.
Thanks, Larry. Appreciate it. You really did your research there on PNC. I'm impressed.
Keely, you're on mute.
All right, Jake, did you have anything else you wanted to say to the club, or are you good to go?
Oh, no, I think Larry did a great job. He covered it. But really excited to join. I've been looking forward to getting on board here for a couple weeks now, and excited to get to know you guys all better. And like I think everyone said now, get to know you guys in person too. So looking forward to joining you guys in the future there, but excited to be here.
Good deal. Well, typically for new members, we like to ask them to do a 5-minute extemporaneous speech on the most politically divisive issue they can think of. So go ahead and take that now.
Gosh, I have so many choices.
I'm kidding.
You could do the sing and dance routine, and we let them do that sometimes.
Hey, don't tempt me. I'm very into politics. I just really enjoy it. So you don't tempt me with a good time.
I'm recognizing right this very moment that I have been a victim of autocorrect in the chat box. So I am correcting my autocorrect spelling mistake as we speak. It is not tri-tip with a Y, it's tri-tip with an I. All right, now with no further ado, We get to end our speakers' boredom in listening to our first 22 minutes of cross chatter. I am super excited to welcome today Matt Largen with Williamson Inc. Matt probably has heard this introduction more than anybody has ever heard any introduction, but Matt serves as president and CEO of Williamson Inc. He previously served as the director of the Williamson County Office of Economic Development, where he managed and directed countywide economic development strategies, including existing business, recruitment of new business, and entrepreneurship. He also previously served as the director of business recruitment at the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, and he's a big ski bum, which we can see from his sign that is on his bookshelf behind him. So now let's welcome to the Rotary Club of Brentwood, ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Matt Largen.
Thank you, Keely. It's hard to follow your introductions for sure. And Larry, thanks for the kind words you had about me as well. You know, I'm fortunate to have the team that we've got, fortunate that had the mentorship of Cindy during the time when we first came together, and incredibly fortunate to work in the community that we all get to live in, to worship in, and do business in. This is just a great place. So we've got a lot of strategic advantages here. And I'm really excited to get to have this conversation with you all today. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes actually going through a survey from businesses in Williamson County that we did back in December. And we had an event last week called the Williamson Business Barometer, where we actually took those results and presented those. Normally we wait until our big event in the spring called Outlook Williamson to present this finding, but we know that things are changing so fast that we wanted to get this data out there because it was still really fresh. So at this point, I think it's Linus that was going to start the presentation. Perfect. All right, thank you. And we'll just walk through some of these slides. So again, this was from the event called the Williamson Business Barometer. And the next slide shows how many people actually participated in the survey. We send this out to a pretty wide audience, and we got back over 1,000 people participated in the survey. And it's important to note that 60% of the people who responded represent companies with fewer than 50 employees. And so we feel like we got a really good breadth and depth of responses from this survey. That was really important. So the first question that we ask, and that we always ask, is rate the Williamson County economy. So the survey was done in December of 2020, so it's the 2021 version, and this is the results. So you can see 49% said good, 43% said excellent, pretty evenly split, and you see fair and poor or unsure or really small. And this would be good news for any economy for sure, but if you actually compare this to last year's numbers, you can see what I call cautious optimism. We had a much higher percentage than last year rated excellent versus good. So we know that, the pandemic has had a ripple effect throughout our country, and our economy is no exception. But all things considered, I would take the excellent and good ranking any day. So we go from looking at the economy now to individual businesses. So we asked them, how would you rate your business outlook? Your outlook for business profitability in 2021, and you can see what the number is. 66%, over 66% said excellent or good, which is a really good sign. And it's important to note our economy is just a reflection of our businesses, and especially our small businesses. So if we know their outlook is good, we know the outlook for our economy is good. Well, those two mirror each other. And the next slide is incredibly important because the most important thing about economic development is jobs. Are you adding jobs? Or are you not? So we asked the question, do you expect your company to hire additional staff over the next year? You'll look that hiring is much higher than cutback, and remain the same is the highest. So again, to be in Williamson County, all things considered, and people are still hiring through a pandemic is a really great sign for this economy now and for the future as well. This next question is a little more COVID related. So we've heard a lot of conversation. I know Devin's on the call too, that, around commercial real estate, right? And so we asked the question, in terms of physical space, your business, organization's office needs will likely remain the same, decrease, increase, unsure. So what's interesting is if you look at next year, which is this year, 2021, you'll notice that more decrease than increase. But then you ask them over the next 5 years, And you'll notice that flips, and you'll see far more space being absorbed over the next 5 years. And this doesn't even include companies that are new to the area. This is just existing companies. So I think this says that we know COVID is going to accelerate trends, but in terms of being a dramatic trend or dramatic change, that's really hard to say. I don't think it will be. I think it will have an impact, but I don't think it's going to affect it as drastically what some people are predicting. And of course, another COVID-related questions we ask about expectations for remote work. This should come as no surprise. A lot of people are seeing an increase in remote work, not much of a decrease. I actually think remote work will end up being something that is an employee retention and recruitment tool for companies to work around, let people set the schedules and work around their schedules. So I think going forward, to me, COVID impacted remote work, the fitness industry for sure, telemedicine for sure. So we see this as a trend that's accelerating as well. So then we ask the next question about business travel. Again, probably not a big surprise for this group. Are you currently traveling for business? The vast majority of people are saying no. Okay, if not, when do you anticipate resuming business travel? We asked about each quarter of 2021. You can see the Q1, Q2, Q3 numbers, Q4, and then after this year. And the biggest response was unsure. And this is a theme through this is uncertainty. We just don't know. It really all depends on the numbers. Same conversation about when to have Rotary meetings in person. We just don't know yet. So, I know as vaccines get in arms and case counts go down, this will change, but we wanted to get a gauge of where things are right now. So we asked a similar question about, has your organization or business resumed hosting group meetings or conferences? Again, not a big surprise. If you look at the numbers, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, after 2021, it mirrors what people said in the last question. Again, the uncertainty is just something we don't know. So that is that set of COVID questions. Then we ask the questions that are so fundamental to the economy. Is your business organization having difficulty finding employees to hire with these specific skills? And you all know as business leaders and owners that hiring talent is the most important thing you do for the short and long-term health of your business. So this was really great to see. I don't have the year-over-year comparisons, but I will tell you that's the highest the little to no difficulty has been in our survey history. Trades, this is the second year that's actually the highest. And what's great about this is tech and IT, actually that dropped in half from last year. And then it was so 2 years ago it was 30%. Last year it was 20, now it's 10%. The Nashville Technology Council with our office and other groups around Middle Tennessee have really encourage kids to get into fields with IT and recruit IT workers to Middle Tennessee. And clearly that's been paying off. The jobs of the future are going to be the ones around IT. So then we asked the question about incentives. What incentives is your business organization using to retain talent? You can see the 21 is in the darker color, 2020 is in the lighter color. So flex scheduling, remote working, continuing ed, increased salary or benefits, childcare and carpool incentives. And I think this is a really, really important slide because it shows our companies were already doing flex scheduling and already doing remote working, which means it was easier for us to adapt to the pandemic than other communities across the country. And look, if Mars can keep their people employed working remotely and Tractor Supply Company, that's more purchasing power to support our small businesses across Middle Tennessee and Williamson County. So it benefits everybody. The following are challenges to your business organization's ability to recruit and retain talent. Obviously, that's an important question too. So finding talent with the right skills. Now that's interesting when people said earlier that, hey, I can find people. I think this probably relates to the fact that our unemployment rate is 3.3%, is the lowest in Middle Tennessee and has been consistently for the last 5 years. So that I think represents a tight labor market. Or we need to add different categories that we're asking about, and we'll do that in future surveys. Lack of affordable or attainable housing continues to be an issue. Traffic and congestion, you can imagine, dropped precipitously. Doesn't mean it's gone forever, right? But it does mean that the pandemic's had an impact on that. And of course, lack of transportation options. Then we asked about looking at the next 5 years. So again, talent drives everything. Housing still an issue. You all probably know the housing market was still really hot in Williamson County last year. It's even hotter this year. traffic and congestion, you see kind of drops in lack of transportation options. Again, I think the transportation piece is something that comes back through COVID. I don't think people are just going to completely abandon offices. They may not be in them as much, but I still think you'll have a need for corporate office in our community. And so if you dig down specifically around affordable or what we call attainable housing, you'll see that, that number, even though it's dropped the last couple of years, it still remains the priority. So if you think about our organization from a scope of work standpoint, it's education funding, it's attainable housing, and it's transportation solution. Those are the three things that our constituents, the business community, says are important to them for their business to be able to grow in the future. And we're working with the city of Franklin right now on an ordinance that would basically incentivize affordable housing that's really close to passing through their city council, board of mayor and aldermen. So we asked a very specific COVID-related question this year. We asked, what are your challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic? And, I think at this point, it's important to note that this is what came back. It's disruptions in the school calendar, lack of childcare options, mental health. There were a lot of other factors on the survey. We asked like job insecurity, because we know all these things are interrelated, right? Mental health could lead to job insecurity, or job insecurity could lead to mental health. But I think the big thing here that we've got to figure out as a business community is the lack of childcare options. Because if you noticed earlier in the presentation, that was the lack of childcare was such a small, or not companies were offering that as an incentive, and a lot of people need it. And I don't know exactly where that goes, but I do think the company or companies that figure out childcare as an incentive for their talent are going to be a leg up in terms of retaining and attracting that kind of talent, especially talent with young families. We're almost done. Man, that was really fast. I know I talk really fast, but I want to leave a lot of time for questions, and we can go back to these individual slides as I finish. So, I mentioned how important education funding was in terms of our scope of work. So we asked the question, in order to adequately fund the following, I would support an increase in property taxes. So you'll see school construction ranked about 41%, and an increase in teacher pay 56%. There already was some work done in the special session around increase in teacher pay. I'm not sure there's a BEP formula thing that has to get worked out, but we know teachers have been like frontline workers during this pandemic. And I know it's impossible to pay them enough, but when it comes to teachers and the pipeline of talent we need to attract into our school system to educate our kids, this is something that I suspect the commission will be looking at in the not too distant future. So that's it for the slides that I brought. The last one is policy talks that Sheila mentioned earlier. We do this once a month on the last Friday of the month at 7:30. We've got all our legislators to talk about what's happening in the session, what bills they're carrying, what they're supporting. It's a really great time. Normally it's at Columbia State. In non-pandemic years, you can actually interact with them, but right now we're doing it virtually. So it is still a good way to stay in touch with your elected representatives. So like I said, that is the presentation. Happy to go back to any one of those slides you'd like me to, or happy to answer questions about just the economy in general, what we're seeing from an economic development standpoint, what we expect moving forward, and how what happens globally affects.
Good. How are you? Good. Well, that's how I feel too. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, busy, but good. I mean,
okay, so if there's any questions,
yes,
either enter those into the chat box, or if we are able to do so, we'll go ahead and listen to your question live. It doesn't look like we have any queued up just yet, so open the floor for questions.
England can be an unforgiving place if you happen to be German. It can often be hard to tell someone really.
Right. Okay, I don't know who needs to be muted, but whoever it is, if they could. I have a quick question, Keely, for Matt. You've mentioned a lot about existing companies and what their plans are for the future. Can you talk a little bit about economic development and what's happening, particularly with the economic development funds that you normally depend on to entice companies to come into our area?
Matt, you're muted.
There you go.
Right.
Okay, sorry about that. That's all right. So the question was about our funding. So we're funded public and private partnership. We get funds from the city and the county, and those are complemented by funds from the private sector. Luckily, through the pandemic, a lot of our larger companies have done really well, like Tractor Supply, Mars Pet Care. So our funding has been steady, which is great. We have started to see our pipeline, I would say, unfreeze over the last few weeks. We actually should have an announcement pretty soon from a small healthcare company out of Illinois that's moving their headquarters here, that actually came to visit during the initial phase of the pandemic. It went quiet, said we're not moving. Then they said they were, and now they're coming back. We should announce that pretty soon. We have a visit next week from a company out of California that's looking to move their entire headquarter operation, which would be, I think, over almost 400 jobs. We got another project in from our partners at the State Department of Economic Development, another headquarter operation. So I think as companies decide what space they're going to take, we will see, maybe a flood is the wrong word, but we will get much busier from an incoming business recruitment standpoint in Williamson County. And even though we weren't able to travel last year, we still did a lot of Zoom calls with site consultants around the country. We did some marketing to make sure that they kept Williamson County top of mind as their clients were deciding how much space they need and then where they want to go.
Awesome. We did get a question in from Jake. He asked, was there any data on companies that had been surveyed in the past that couldn't be surveyed due to closure? Or any questions indicating small businesses that had to close due to COVID, so completely out of business?
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. We do keep a list of new business license every month. And in fact, we actually write a joint letter from myself and the county mayor to those businesses who file a new business license every month, welcoming them to the community, letting them know we're there to help. But there's not really a great database of small businesses who close. It's almost as if it's ones that you sort of see and notice. And we just haven't seen or noticed a lot of small businesses that closed during the pandemic. Now, it doesn't mean they weren't hurt. It doesn't mean that they're just barely holding on, which is why just earlier, I think it was just yesterday, it's been a week, we had a program with the state director of SBA about the PPP loans. We really did a push hard on round one and make sure we could get as many people into those loans as possible, the forgivable loans. We even converted one of our team members to an SBA advisor. He helped over 100 companies actually walk through the process. And we just did a program with SBA earlier this week about round two. So we've really done a job, what I think is a good job, reaching out to our business community, especially our members, to meet them where they are and meet their immediate needs. So short answer is I haven't seen a lot of small businesses close, but that doesn't mean they're all doing well, especially those in restaurant, tourism, hospitality right now.
All right, I have
Hey, Keely, this is Drew Rogers. I've got a question for Matt.
Yeah, go ahead, Drew.
Hey, Drew.
Hey, Matt. Sorry I can't be on camera. I've got a complicated AV setup, so it's just better that I'm not on camera. But first and foremost, I wanted to thank you for being here and for all of your leadership in developing the regional economy of Middle Tennessee. You guys, Williamson Inc. is a tremendous asset to the region, not just Williamson County. So I wanted to say that first. But the second, my question is really, you had shared some information about plans to return to air travel. And I know that Williamson Inc. has a very close relationship with the Airport Authority and Doug Krulin, and was curious if you guys bounced that data off of the Airport Authority and compared your information with their information.
Yeah, we have. Doug is actually our vice chair right now. He'll be our incoming chair next year. Great guy. It's very similar. So yeah, we'll pull that slide up. That's great. So what the airport's seeing right now is almost 100% leisure travel. And if you've heard Doug throughout the pandemic, immediately the numbers were just I mean, went from hundreds of thousands of passengers a day to almost nothing. And so they've recovered over time, but it's the business travel. Same with hospitality. It's the business travel and our hotels that really make up that gap with tourists and people that come into town. So seeing leisure travel that's starting to get back to normal, but business travel, that's the big question. The bigger question too, I think, is look, if you were someone who every quarter went to your corporate office, maybe going forward, that quarterly meeting, maybe 1 or 2 of those a year is done over Zoom. So you're not traveling as much, and then multiply that. I also heard one airline pilot say, look, the moment that your competitor wins a project or wins a deal because they went and visited somebody's office in person is the minute you're going to get on the plane for that next deal. So I think that's the challenge, is extrapolating out what happens long-term versus what is a historical anomaly. And I just don't think we know that. We're doing an event in November, a real estate summit with WCAR. We're going to look at trends in office and residential real estate. And really, we wanted to wait until November to do this because we'll have a better idea of what these long-term trends are going to be for Williamson County and the country.
Let's see. I've got a couple that have direct messaged me, so I'll read those off. Larry Kane says at one time, oh, this is funny. I actually had this conversation yesterday with somebody. At one time, Maryland Farms was a concern as it was becoming dated. What is the current status and reception of Maryland Farms to incoming companies or those moving to Williamson County? Specifically, sort of the infrastructure in some of those office buildings.
Sure. Well, obviously, I mean, HG Hill helps, right? The Hill Center helps from that standpoint. I think the thing about Maryland Farms is it's blessed from a geographic standpoint. If you've got a company and you're attracting talent from Davidson County and Williamson County, it's a great place to be, both for your talent and for clients too. If you're serving clients in downtown Nashville and Cool Springs, it just makes a lot of sense. So to me, the long-term viability of Maryland Farms is there because of that midpoint between Nashville and Franklin and South Williams County, especially as Spring Hill builds out. I think what you'll see and what you have seen is a building by building approach. So you'll have building owners that will completely renovate a building from the inside out normally. And I think that's what you'll see happen. I'm not sure you'll see a huge redevelopment of Maryland Farms, but I think you'll probably see it building by building when it necessitates. It's one of the challenges here, and people in commercial real estate know this, is it wasn't that long ago that our office vacancy was less than 1%. Now we're between 15 and 20%. And so, the hope is that you've got companies moving from out of town to fill that vacancy, but that certainly is a consideration and a concern moving forward, and not just here, but submarkets across Middle Tennessee.
Jason says, any news on what will replace the YMCA, Maryland Farms YMCA, when they redevelop that, or the process?
Well, so that's a great question, right? I think that when I spoke to the YMCA director right before they made that announcement, they said that funds from the sale will end up being used to renovate that existing facility. And so you wonder if, I'm not aware that it's been sold yet. So if it doesn't get sold, what happens to the plans they have entirely? In other words, are they really able to do what they want to do long term if that building doesn't sell? So I don't know the answer to that, but I know that I've got to think plans have at least been impacted by what's happened through COVID.
Betsy, you indicated you might have a transit question. Are you on?
I'm on.
Go for it.
All right. Hey, Matt.
Hey.
Just a question. I'm a transit advocate. So
Sure.
COVID has sort of taken the wind out of some of the discussion, but have there been more sort of behind the scenes planning? And do you think that COVID will affect discussions on transit negatively, or would it be more of a, we can do an inner city kind of transit thing where we can circulate better within neighborhoods versus between cities?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it'd only be speculated right now. I will say, I have been incredibly disappointed that the South Corridor study isn't finished. I mean, that study feels like Betsy started, I don't know, 20 years ago. Maybe it's only 3 or 4, but it's just, I mean, it's insane. And I noticed that they're even doing another study before they finish this one. So I don't really understand that. I'm not aware. There have been a lot of conversations behind the scenes. I know there's some money for transit in one of President Biden's proposals, but I don't know where that gets us. And so I think with COVID, you know, right now there isn't as big a need as there was, but transit wasn't always just to reduce and eliminate traffic. It was also seen as an economic development tool that was a necessity to continue to grow your economy in a thoughtful, strategic way, like Denver did with their transit system over a decade ago. So I know there's still conversations happening, but I don't really know how much movement. We did survey transit in this, and you know, just for time of our event, we didn't really talk about it because nothing had really changed. So I don't know the answer, but I've got to think that look, Nashville would have to pass something, you know, dramatic to kickstart that. And with their tax increase that just went into effect, I can't imagine the voters in Davidson County have any more appetite for any additional funding for a large regional transit system right now.
All right, that reaches the end of our questions so far queued up. So anybody else have anything that you would like to ask of Matt? Linus, while we're waiting for other questions to queue, if there are any, we put the business travel slide back up, that page?
Sure, man. Sure will, Keely.
I just think this is interesting. The biggest piece of people are unsure, of course, when they're going to resume business travel, because nobody knows when things will be brought back under control. But I think there's an added piece that we may not be noticing. If you look over to the left side, 16% say yes, they're currently traveling. 63% say no, they're not currently traveling. Add those two figures up. There's 20% of people who are unsure whether they're currently traveling for business. So
Actually, Keely, and I knew someone would bring this up. So that 20% doesn't typically travel for business.
I know. I knew exactly what the reason was. If we had a few minutes, I'd fill it with some comedy.
No, I get it. Well, and we made really sure that either these added up to 100% or we had an explanation why they didn't as we were doing this for our presentation last week.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions you'd like to ask?
See, I told you I wouldn't. I was no way I'd push you guys past 1 o'clock. There's no.
Keely, I'll throw a hyper-specific question out there, just because it's part of what I do. So Matt, you mentioned that one of the interesting answers, and it was obviously picked up by the media and highlighted in the news articles, was a lack of childcare and how we deal with that. As somebody in the commercial real estate business who represents several childcare providers, one of the greatest challenges in increasing the options is not just the cost of land in Williamson County, but particularly the way in which each municipality treats that zoning, and how they allow for childcare in certain zones. Is there any effort or any conversation internally by the chamber on getting into that issue and becoming an advocate to help solve that problem by working with individual or collectively all the municipalities on solving some of the barriers for there being more options?
And that's a great question. And I think this survey really just scratched the surface of something that we've heard anecdotally for a while around childcare. We've actually gone to building owners and said, hey, have you ever thought about putting in childcare on the first floor for all your tenants in this building? And they really hadn't. So you know, you're exactly right. Once you dig into an issue, you start to understand why it hasn't been done, and are there regulatory things that we can ease that makes it easier to do. So I think the childcare piece, this helps us understand or helps us identify it as an issue. And now the next step, like you said, is digging in to find out how we can impact the issue, much like attainable housing. Now we actually have a proposal, as often as we've talked about it before the city of Franklin, that something can actually be done and happen as a result of it. I think childcare will probably be the same thing, especially if we hear this more and more from our larger existing companies.
That was a great hyper-specific question.
That's a great question. I mean, I'm just curious, since we have a couple of minutes. I mean, what are you all seeing in the market? Is there anything that you've noticed, or any like milepost, or that you say, okay, once we hit this, I know we're going to be okay, or once I see this, I know my business or the economy is going to be okay. I'm always curious with your feedback when it comes to what you're seeing in your business or your sector.
I've got, what I've been hearing, it's along the lines of childcare also, is people that, the businesses, the people who actually work in the businesses are saying, okay, if we are decreasing the amount of office space needed, why doesn't the company just use that office space for childcare for their employees? Rather than, shrink down the office space, just keep what they currently have and use that for childcare.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing a lot of that.
Yeah. We've done a survey, and the only large company I'm aware of, it doesn't mean it's the only one, that has childcare on site is Dollar General at Goodlettsville, which I think was more common than not several decades ago, but that's the only one I'm aware of that actually has a center on their campus.
Yeah, you asked, Matt, if we're seeing any kind of, if we reach this point, then we think we're reaching a point of recovery. And unfortunately for me, I have not experienced that. I've not run into that on either a personal level or a professional level. And I think it's because we just haven't trod this road before. We have no historical ability to look back and say, when we reach this point, things will start to get better. We have that on pretty much every other economic downturn we've experienced in the last 100 years. We just don't have it on this one. And the 100 years ago pandemic was a completely different country than the one we have now, and a completely different economy. So it's, I hate to use the phrase again, but it's uncharted waters. I'm not even going to use the word because it's so overused. So.
Yes, unprecedented for sure. Yeah, no, and
You did it.
Yeah, I know. I really try not to use all these COVID words, but it's true, right? It is unprecedented. We haven't been here. We don't know what it is. And look, I mean, the moment we thought we had this thing under control in the summer, what happened in the late fall and winter, right? And I think that's the uncertainty piece you see reflected in the survey that I presented today.
Hey, Matt, this is Betsy again. There's some good news on the horizon, at least medically, because I'm keeping up with this COVID thing very daily, so to speak. And I was looking at recovery rates and what we could probably suggest protection, from the time that you either get it or get the vaccine. And it's gotten out to a year now. It used to be 90 days. And so we're learning more about it. And I like Keely says, the uncertainty of the whole thing, once we begin to learn more about it, I think we'll have a lot more knowledge to work from and be able to actually look at the future and start to project exactly what we're going to be able to do.
Yeah, that's a great point, Betsy. We had a board alumni meeting yesterday with Vanderbilt and St. Thomas on, and they said the same thing. They said hospitalizations are down, infections are down, vaccines are up. So they felt really good about where they were, especially compared with really just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Kind of to put an opposite spin on it, I actually also work in the travel industry. I'm a travel agent, and with some of the news about a possible mandatory testing before flights, that's the industry more further away from coming back than anything, which you'd think is surprising, but a lot of people are canceling trips. I work in a very large agency, and we plan thousands of trips a year, and there's been so many cancellations even since that ominous threat or possibility of having to test before flights. And so that's an industry that, when you think about what needs to happen for that to come back, that we haven't seen a sign of hope, I don't think, since this all started. And I don't know if we're going to see one anytime soon, to be honest.
Yeah, that seems like that gets pushed back further. I mean, it just, if you look at events and cancellations of large conferences and what goes online and whatnot, I mean, we just don't know yet. And that's really hard for a certain sector of our economy that's been hit the hardest, hit the first, to actually fully recover.
We'll go ahead and end on that very positive note. No, I'm kidding. Actually, Dick Bowers, before we started the formal part of the meeting, mentioned that Rotary International's conference canceled it last year in Hawaii this past summer, and next summer was in Taiwan, and they have made the decision to cancel that. So similar to what Jake's saying, they're pushing it further out on the travel piece of things.
And that's looking, Keely, mostly that they expected 25, 30,000 people to go to that convention, or maybe even more.
Right. So that's a huge economic impact, and that's going on all over the globe, of course. Back on the positive side, I do agree with what Betsy's saying. We're seeing really positive trends for cases going down. We're seeing positive trends for hospitalizations going down. Obviously, vaccine rates going up, and new vaccines perhaps coming online soon. So there's lots of reason to be optimistic. Here's the great thing, and Matt being here is timely for this statement, and that is that one of the positives is that, once again, I think the Middle Tennessee area has tended to be somewhat insulated in terms of the impact. We've not seen it like many other areas have, and it does seem like we are headed in a positive direction. So let's focus on some of that positive. Let's be happy once again that we are residents of Middle Tennessee. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a great way to end it. We've been remarkably resilient. There's no question. Unemployment rate's still the lowest in the state. And I'll say, we look at ribbon cuttings as an indicator, right? And even last year through the pandemic, we had one more ribbon cutting than we had in 2018. So that's a good sign. People were willing to open businesses and risk capital even during a pandemic. And that says a lot about the Middle Tennessee and Williamson County economy.
Keely?
That's amazing. Go ahead, Steve.
I will say, on the cancellation of Rotary International, the good news in 2022, it will be in Houston, Texas. And so if you've never been to a Rotary International conference, you really ought to go. And this is one that will be close. It's a Southwest, I guess, flight. And, but yeah, go ahead and put that on your calendar, because 2022, I am right, aren't I, Dick? It will be in Houston.
That's right.
I believe that's the case, unless they say they change something.
Right. So,
but I don't know if I agree with you that I agree with you, Steve, that it's great that it's so close, but the food in Houston is just not the food of Taipei.
Also, Houston in the summer leaves a lot to be desired. I'm just going to say
early summer.
All right.
It'll be mid-June.
Before we sign off, are there any other announcements that I may have missed at the beginning? Any club members have anything to add? Once again, keep Linus in your thoughts and prayers, and his family. Jim Ryan and Jonathan Merck also still, their family is dealing with the loss of Jim's mother and Jonathan's mother-in-law. Obviously, Irene Wheelwright, Virginia Stokes. I talked with Virginia earlier today. She sounds really good. But definitely keep those cards and phone calls going to those folks. And those who are sick, who are dealing with illness of some sort: Bob Belenfant, Kay McCarthy, Mary Dickerson, Robert and Dottie Fiddler. Just keep all those folks in your thoughts and prayers. If there is no other business for the good of Rotary, then we are adjourned. Please stay safe.
Thank you, Matt.
Healthy.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.